All right, welcome to this explainer. I am incredibly thrilled to guide you through this today. We're going to put on our hats as researchers, Sanskrit scholars, and documentary guides to decode what is, honestly, one of the most brilliant pieces of mathematical architecture from the ancient world. We're diving deep into Chapter 28 of our Brihat Parashara Horasastra study to explore Shadbala, the 6 great powers of the planets. So let's jump right into this amazing synthesis of astronomy, math, and philosophy.
Here's our roadmap for this session. First, the core concept of Shadbala. Then, Principle 1, directional strength. Next, we'll look at calculating that Digbala. After that, Principle 2, declination strength. Then we'll check out the complete Shadbala structure and finally wrap up with its practical significance. Let's get to it.
Part 1, the concept of Shadbala, or the sixfold strength.
So what exactly is Shadbala? Well, think of it like the ultimate planetary credit score. You know how a credit score uses all sorts of historical and behavioral factors to prove your financial power? Shadbala does exactly that, but for the cosmos. It uses 6 distinct sources of strength: positional, directional, temporal, motional, natural, and aspectual. This framework reveals not just where a planet happens to be hanging out, but how effectively it can actually project its energy and deliver its specific results to us down here on Earth. It is a profoundly interconnected, deeply holistic view of our universe.
Moving right along to Part 2, Principle 1, Digbala, or directional strength.
When we parse the original Sanskrit manual, specifically page 267, though a quick heads up, you might occasionally see textual headers misnumbered as chapter 27 in some translations, we find shlokas 7 through 7.5 detailing exactly how this works. And the text doesn't just give us vague, floaty, philosophical ideas. No, it lays down a strict, precise, geometric relationship to the horizon. It literally treats the sky as a quantifiable sphere of influence.
Let's look at the simple English translation of that shloka. It gives us a direct mathematical algorithm. It tells us to deduct the 4th house from the longitudes of Sun and Mars, the 7th house from Jupiter and Mercury, the 10th house from Venus and Moon, and the ascendant from Saturn. What this shows us is that in Vedic astrology, the Earth isn't just floating randomly in a void. The local space around the observer is intricately, beautifully tied to planetary power.
This table brilliantly illustrates the 4 centers of the horoscope described in Digbala. Let's break this down together. The ascendant, or first house, represents the east, the dawn. Right here, Jupiter and Mercury, which are planets of wisdom and intellect, gain maximum strength. They thrive in the light of new beginnings. Then you have the 10th house, representing the south, the meridian, literally the highest point in the sky. Naturally, the Sun and Mars, planets of authority and action, command this absolute zenith. The 7th house is the west, the descendant, where the sun sets. Saturn, the planet of shadow, endings, and endurance, finds its absolute peak power right here. And finally, the 4th house is the north, the nadir, deep below the horizon, hidden and internal. Down here, the Moon and Venus, our planets of emotion, comfort, and inner life, reach their maximum directional strength. It's so poetic, but mathematically precise.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is how we actually calculate this ourselves. First, you identify the planet's exact longitude in degrees. Then, you find its zero strength point, which is exactly opposite to its strongest point that we just discussed. You deduct that 0-point cusp from the planet's longitude. Now, if that distance is more than 180 degrees, you simply deduct it from 360 to find the shortest angular distance. Finally, divide that number by 3. The result? That's your directional strength quantified in a specific ancient unit called a virupa. To put that into perspective for you, a maximum score is 60 virupas, which equals exactly 1 rupa.
All right, Part 3, Principle 2, Ayana Bala, which is declination strength.
Turning over to page 276, the ancient text outlines Ayana Bala. Here, the focus totally shifts from the local horizon to the vast celestial equator. It outlines this incredibly profound mathematical framework for measuring a planet's strength based on its seasonal declination, meaning how far north or south it actually travels in the sky throughout the year.
Translated into simple English, this verse introduces a beautiful astronomical concept called Kranti, which just means celestial declination, and it reveals a truly fascinating mathematical formula. You take the maximum tilt of the Earth's axis, and guys, get this, the text explicitly uses 23 degrees and 27 minutes. That is the exact measurement of Earth's axial tilt that we use in modern astronomy today. Mind-blowing, right? You add or subtract the planet's specific Kranti. Then you multiply it by a highly specific constant, 1.2793. This constant perfectly weighs the planetary power across the solstices and equinoxes.
Astrologically and philosophically, this is just profound. It tells us that a planet's angular distance north or south of the celestial equator directly alters its actual capacity to project energy onto us. The sky gets divided into the Uttarayan, the northern course of the sun bringing light and warmth, and the Dakshinayan, the southern course, which is associated with entirely different energetic qualities.
This fundamentally categorizes the planets. The fiery and benefic planets, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Venus, they gain immense power when they have northern Kranti, moving through the Uttarayan. Conversely, the Moon and Saturn gain their power with southern Kranti, down in the Dakshinayan. And hey, remember Mercury from the previous calculation? Well, Mercury acts as an eternal constant here. Its declination values are always additive, perfectly reflecting its adaptable, neutral nature within the planetary cabinet.
Moving on to Part 4, the complete Shadbala structure.
The text provides this incredible master diagram known as Spashtbala Chakrayas. It brilliantly aggregates all those distinct planetary powers we've been discussing. You can see the rows compiling the calculated Virupas for positional strength, directional, temporal, motional, and declination. It basically creates a comprehensive matrix, the ultimate scorecard of planetary dominance for any single specific moment in time.
But here's the catch. Just calculating the score isn't enough. We need to know what a good score actually looks like. Found on page 287 of the text, Shlokas 32 and 33 dictate the exact pass marks each planet has to achieve. It's literally like a student needing a certain grade to pass a class. A planet needs a specific minimum total of Virupas to be considered functionally strong and capable of delivering positive, tangible results in a person's life.
When we decode this Sanskrit numbering from those verses, we get this incredibly clear requirement table. And remember, 60 Virayupas equal 1 Rupa. Notice the sheer variation here. The Sun and Jupiter require 6.5 Rupas to be considered strong. But look at Mercury. It requires the highest absolute score of 420 Virayupas, or 7 full Rupas, just to be deemed powerful. In stark contrast, Mars and Saturn, being naturally intense, malefic planets, only require 5 Rupas to assert their strength. This isn't just arbitrary math. It deeply reflects the unique energetic threshold of each celestial body.
Now for Part 6, the practical astrological significance. Shifting to page 36 of the source material, the text explicitly bridges that gap between celestial mathematics and earthly experience. It clearly states that a planet meeting these Shadbala requirements becomes an absolute powerhouse. Practically speaking, this governs everything from a person's physical well-being and internal psychology all the way to their success in specific geographic directions on Earth.
So, here are the key takeaways you absolutely need to remember. First, planets that exceed their specific Shadbala threshold are the ones that will yield highly favorable, potent results. However, context is everything. The text notes a really fascinating caveat. Saturn's extreme strength grants a very long life, but because of its core nature, it can also bring extended miseries. Also, Digbala, that directional strength we calculated earlier, acts as a literal compass. Think of Digbala as your personal, ancient GPS system. If Jupiter is exceptionally strong and has high Digbala in your chart, the text suggests immense success in the northeast direction. Conversely, if you undertake a journey or choose to live in a geographic direction ruled by a planet that completely lacks this calculated strength, the text explicitly warns of serious obstructions and losses. This turns abstract astronomy into a highly practical map for your daily earthly navigation.
As we wrap up this masterclass explainer on Chapter 28 of the Brihaparasara Hora Shastra, I really want to leave you with this thought. We've just traced an incredibly profound synthesis of spherical geometry, temporal calculations, and deep philosophy. It really begs the question, how does this highly structured ancient mathematical mapping of space and time challenge our modern, purely physical view of the planets? It suggests a universe where geometry, time, and human experience are fundamentally and mathematically intertwined. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next